You like? Very good morning, viewers. Welcome to our again a new show of weekend Q&A live with our doctors. Thanks for joining us today, and a very happy Navratra to each one of you from Ishka Healthcare. Today we have a very special topic, that is food and your body. It is most awaited topic, and today's especially our the Q&A is very special. I'll tell you why. So today we have both of our doctor joining today, Dr. Aditya Hande and Dr. Joby. First of all, I'll introduce you to both of our doctor. First we have Dr. Aditya Hande, who is a senior consultant for naturopathy at Ishka Ayurveda. Welcome, doctor. And we have Dr. Joby George, who is working as senior consultant Ayurveda at Ishka Healthcare, Bangalore. So thanks for joining us, doctor. Happy Navratra to you both.
Same to you.
Yeah, so we believe we are going to learn a lot about food and our body. As we know, this is most crucial topic nowadays to boost immunity and multiple topic like that. So first of all, I would like to ask what exactly is food according to each one of your ideology. So we'll start with Dr. Joby first. What exactly is food according to Ayurvedic ideology? Doctor, please.
Yeah, so warm welcome, viewers. And food is that substance that helps for the sustenance of life. So it gives strength, it gives immunity. You talk about muscle building, memory, you talk about stamina, complexion, you talk about voice clarity. Whatever concerning body, it is always because of the food. If you don't take food for one day, you don't feel like talking. You will feel a lot of confusions. So these are all related with food. Food is also called as the Mahabhaishajya, or the greatest medicine. It is said, if you wisely take your food like medicine, then you will not require to take your medicine like food. Like, if you don't take your food properly, if you don't have the awareness, then you will land up taking medicines more in number like how you take your food. Food is one of the main upastambhas for, as Ayurveda has explained, for the sustenance of life. Now coming to the relationship of food and body. Like we know this concept of states of matter, we have learnt in science. So it was very much explained earlier, thousands of years back, that states of matter were 5 and what we call as Panchamahabhutas. So in every matter, these 5 elements are present. In the food also it is present, in our body also it is present. So suppose you are taking more of juices or juicy vegetables, it means it has more of Jala Mahabhuta or liquid. So it will increase the Jala Mahabhuta in the body. It will increase the liquid factors in the body. So it is said for every food. Now these are correlated with the 3 doshas. So every food or vegetables, fruits, whatever you take, that they have 3 doshas, and it has to balance that 3 dosha in our body. Another concept is the Shad Rasas, or the 6 tastes that we know. So these tastes are again, they are grouped into this Vata Pitta Kapha, the 3 doshas, as to which it will balance. If you take more, then which will aggravate, which doshas will aggravate more. So that is how the taste that we feel on the tongue is correlated to the body. Then there is gunas, or properties. About 20 properties are mentioned in Ayurveda about each substances. So if say tomato, so what all gunas are there, what all rasas are there, and how it will affect those gunas in our body, how it will affect the three doshas in our body. So, guna, virya. When we talk about virya, it is the hot or the cold, not in temperature, but after taking that substance, the end product, whether it will increase the heat in the body, whether it will decrease the heat in the body. So that is one concept of virya. Then there is vipaka and prabhava. Like the end product is amla, katu or madhura. That is, it is alkaline in nature, or it is acidic in nature, or neutral, to correlate. So everything, there are so many terms and terminology concerning food in Ayurveda. Everything cannot be, translated into the modern aspect. So they have their own terminologies, which we correlate along with the body. And Ayurveda, if you see all the samhitas, they have explained so beautifully about the food, about the biochemistry in the sense of this, whatever terms I have used. So it is very beautifully explained, and that is how even medicines, we correlate with these gunas, viryas, vipakas, and do the treatment.
Thank you so much, Doctor. That was pretty insightful. Dr. Aditya, would you please share some insights on food and their ideology on according to naturopathy?
Yeah, first of all, welcome to all the viewers who are here, who have joined for this session on food and its properties as such, to understand what food is. So we need to understand what, first of all, is food, because once you consider what food is, then we can consider whether it is right, wrong, or we can classify into any things. So basically, science or naturopathy science as such tells that any food, for that matter, if it has, let's say, elements which are edible, for example, carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins, and minerals, these are the 5 major elements which is there in the body, and which is there in the food, which has to be taken care of and which has to be utilized for our digestion purposes, for our edible purposes, and all those things. So that is the reason why food becomes a very integral part of our existence. So around us, whatever we find, you can see the plants, you can see the non-plant-based fruits or animals, anything which we eat on a regular basis itself becomes food. So the ideology of naturopathy says about the importance of food in aspect of balancing the so-called elemental levels. Because whether you eat carbohydrate, whether you eat fat, what happens is we are not balancing it enough. So that is the reason why we have diseases. So the major 3 diets which comes to our mind when we talk of naturopathic principles is basically soothing diet, constructive diet, and eliminative diet. So what is soothing? Soothing is it soothes your GI system, it soothes your abdomen to your gut, and it takes care of your abdomen as such. Constructive is it nourishes your body, and eliminative, as the name suggests, it eliminates the toxin matter. So science, when we talk about how these elements and how these scientific modality works on, we need to understand these 5 elements in its totality. That is the reason why naturopathy doesn't prescribe more of any kind of a particular diet. When we say diet, it has to be more of a balanced in nature. It contributes to the wholesome development of the body. At the same time, it also contributes to the entirety of the system. When we say entirety of the system, there are a lot of things which happens ups and downs. Basically, it's not just drinking or eating food. It's also about drinking the water. So there is a lot of salt imbalances because of which we have pain, we have, let's say, insomnia, we have tiredness, we have salt deficiencies. These are basically because we are not eating the food right way. Probably we might discuss in a future times where exactly and how exactly is the food affecting our body. But for us to understand food is this: you need to take care of food, or you need to take care of your body where it is having a very peaceful way of integrating with the system. That is the reason why Hippocrates, in his wordings, he has said, "Thy food, thy medicine." That means that your food itself becomes your medicine. So you need not take medicine. That is the entire principle of naturopathy. Naturopathy believes strongly on not taking any kind of an external supplementation, external medication for enhancing your system's growth. So when we say that we need to consider whether our food is really rich enough to take care of itself. That is the reason why today we have raise in nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals and all those things, because we don't eat accordingly. So our entire focus, our entire attention should lie on how we balance our food from breakfast till the dinner. So once that is there, then obviously it matters. But in India, we have a good system of naturopathy and yoga. Bhagavad Gita talks about yukta ahara viharasya yukta chetasya bhishani. That means that whatever is the food, whenever you are utilizing the food, it has to be balanced in nature. So if you don't have a balance in your food, that becomes a problem. So that is the reason why focus on balancing your food. So it is all about how do you maintain your health with just ingredients available in your kitchen. So once you take care of that, then probably you will not have any disease as such.
Thank you so much, doctor. So we will take few questions coming in. So one of our viewer asks, thanks ma'am, please explain for water intake for PCOD. That's I guess for Dr. Joby. Water intake for PCOD. And also what a water role for weight loss and management.
Water intake?
Water intake for PCOD plus water's role for weight loss and management. So there are two different questions.
Yes. Water is very important because for whatever toxins are being built up in the body, it needs to be flushed out of the body. And that is through the urinary tract or through the excretory or anal region. So water intake is very important because that is the factor that pulls in all the other toxins and removes it from the body. So if it is not just for PCOD but for all diseases and for general health also, water intake is very important.
Okay. So there is any measurement that this much quantity of water of
It will depend on your age. It will depend on your activities that you do. Because if you do more of physical activities, you are sweating more, water intake has to be more. And if you are in a very humid climate or in the coastal region or in the summer season, then again your water intake has to be more. If you are pregnant, if you are a lactating mother, again it has to increase. So basically we say at least 3 liters is required for an adult, plus minus whatever factors I have said.
I hope that answers your question. So before we take other questions, so we'll go with the format. So the second thing which I'm very sure every one of us would like to know, as we are talking about the gunas of food and the balancing of food. So what exactly is a good food and what exactly is a bad food? And if something we call as a bad food, that bad food can cause disease and disorder. So we'll start with Dr. Joby.
More than saying that food causes, good food, bad food, or food causes diseases, I would like to say that it is the ignorance of the people that lead them into diseases. Mainly when I talk about these Shad Rasas, the 6 tastes that we have, if some people, we tend to overeat just on one taste. Like you overeat on sugar and you land up in diabetes. You overeat, like in India there's a prevalence of taking more of pickles. It's amla rasa. That leads you into more of acidity and types of disorders. So that is one factor. Then one more thing is seasons. God or nature has tuned us in such a way, our body is tuned to the nature. With the changes in the seasons, the doshas in our body also change. So accordingly, what happens is the fruits that nature provides us is also changing. You don't get, nowadays obviously you get all fruits in all seasons. That is because of the modern techniques of farming. Also, like it is available everywhere because of transportation. But if you know the season, if you take winter fruits in summer season, it is not the right way. You will end up in getting a disease. So you have to know what fruits are to which seasons, what food are to which seasons. Another concept is to which land, which food is to which land. Like there are so many, as I said, coastal area and marshy lands, deserts. So all these have their own specific food items, and that is mainly to balance these three doshas in the body. So once in a while you want to taste outside food, whether if you are in America or in Australia and you take food that is coming from outside, if you make it a regular habit, it will not balance the doshas. You have to take food that is to your land, to the season that is you are present now. That is more important. Then there is also the concept of the combination of foods. More than calories, proteins, carbohydrates, what is more important is what is the combination that you are taking. Like Viruddhaharas we say in Ayurveda. So like milk, everybody has this concept of allergy to milk, lactose intolerance, allergy to peanuts. So many allergies are there. The reason behind this, even modern people, modern medicine, they don't have any answers to certain questions, but Ayurveda does. When you see, you take the history of how their food, their lifestyle and food style is, you will get to know. There are so many vitiligo patients coming, you take the history, it was always seafood with milk, or seafood with curd, or radish with curd, milk. So all these combinations are which causes this problem. You should know, if you say milk is wholesome food, then you should also know that it has a lot of gunas in it which makes it divya, or very pure, and it is heavy to digest. So it should not be combined with any other food substances. Like we take tea with snacks. We take milk with with our breakfast. You take salt, you take pickles. There is so much of sour food that is going on. So along with that you take milk, it will not be a balanced diet. So you cannot say that, I had milk today, I am healthy today. That's not the answer. So there are various combinations that people should know when to take and with what to combine and take.
All right. Thank you so much, Doctor. That was really insightful. Dr. Aditya?
Yeah. As we are talking about the wrong foods and right food, food, as rightfully said by Dr. Joby, that there is no right food or wrong food. It's only our implication towards it. I would not go in details about food because she has elaborated that, but I would rather speak about some of the rules and regulations which we need to manage, but we fail to do so. I hope everybody has 32 teeth, but the problem is we don't utilize those 32 teeth. We don't bite our food. So you just gulp your food down. So that's the first and foremost problem which we need to understand. The thing is, you gulp down, your body doesn't break the essential proteins, and that becomes a protein degeneration later in your stomach, and that leads to gaseousness. So that is the reason why I would suggest you to first chew your food properly. So at least once, let's say you have a chapati, you have a piece of chapati which is equivalent of 1/3 or 2/3 of the quadrants. Try chewing that for minimum of 24 times. Then you'll not have a problem about whether you are having obesity, diabetes, asthma, anything. The reason why I'm telling this is, we have obesity pandemic, or obesity as such as a huge toll on our public health. People ask what I'm supposed to eat. You don't need to eat anything, you don't need to omit anything. The problem is you don't know how to chew your food. Like I said, obesity runs in the family. The problem is nobody in your family runs. So get that into your psyche first, because eating food is not just gulping down food. Eating food is sitting down. There is no external stimulus to influence your food. If you are watching TV, reduce it. If you're watching your mobile, reduce it. If you are watching books, reduce it. That's the first thing. Accordingly, have your food. That's first. Then you have your food when you are relaxed. Don't eat when you are too much of an anger. Don't eat when you are too much of a depressed. Don't eat when you want to make some decisions, because implication of your mind makes a lot of implications on your diet. So that is the reason why don't do when an extreme situation is there. Especially when we do on a party, we don't understand what exactly is good for our health, because we are just in a jovial mood. We eat whatever we want. So this is the thing which you need to understand. Secondly, I think we had a question about obesity and water. Water is again an important source of our survival. 72% of the body is consisting of water. So once we say that 72% of body is water, then we need to understand that it has a major role in our system. When we say it is a major role in our system, how the water is being utilized is also second matter. That is the reason why in chemistry, I think we all have heard that water is a universal solvent. Anything, let's say calcium is too much in your body, it is utilized by your water by draining it off from the spaces of your cells. Similarly, magnesium, if there is a deficiency, your water provides magnesium, carrying it from somewhere else. So supplementation again doesn't become an answer, because supplementation, what you get is basically a little bit of twisted, and once it goes into it, and there's a lot of other chemistry which I think it's not the right time to get into that matter. But the thing is, water is again a very important portion for you to understand that it is also important for your health and well-being. Apart from that, in naturopathy today, when we talk about wrong food, we have foods which are generally processed. When we say wrong, it is not natural. You might have question now, everything around us is processed. Let's say fruits, vegetables, everything is processed. But try to get as much less processed as possible. So that is the reason why we say avoid the 5 whites. The sugar, the table sugar, the salt, the refined salt, the flour, the multi-purpose flour, the milk, which is basically white in substance. I'll tell you why I'm avoiding these things. The same time, anything which is made up of white substance like that of rice, wheat, which is produced and it is having a lot of implications on your health. So that is the reason why we ask you to not to have these 5 elements. The first one, as I said, sugar. Sugar is allowed, or it is believed that it increases your so-called oxidative stress in your body. That leads to mental implications. That's the first thing. Second is salt. I think everybody knows salt makes your arteries a little bit finer, and that leads to hypertension. So that is one reason. This is not just the reason, but this is one reason where you can understand. Second is flour, refined flour, anything which is refined today. Let's say rice, let's say wheat, let's say any food item which is actually refined in nature like oils, they lose their chemical structure. They are high in carbohydrate, low in fat and protein components. So that implicates your health again. Milk. I am not blaming against the Ayurvedic practice, but today's modern milk is basically injected with progesterone. And I think the question about PCOD and water, this is one reason for you. PCOD mainly comes because of injected hormones in the milk. So if you're drinking milk, try avoiding milk and check your diet. Probably that might help you. At the same time, other thing which is very important is the white rices. As I said today, as she also pointed out, that today's world we have a lot of modern techniques in farming. So what has happened is majority of the farm techniques which we are utilizing is surplus for the production, but the problem is it is not sufficing everyone because there is a nutritional deficiency in everything around us. So I'm not promoting organic. What I'm trying to tell is whatever is available, see to it that it is more natural in nature. So this comes to the idea of yoga, which talks about Rajasika, Satvika and Tamasika gunas. So which has an implication on your body. None of the food qualities are wrong. We consider it as non-vegetarian, vegetarian, anything. It's not wrong. But the only thing is how much of the food particle which is being absorbed by your body, you are trying to utilize that. For obesity, for that matter, you have, let's say, 2,200 kilocalories per day. But you are utilizing just 200 kilocalories per day, especially during the lockdown when majority of us were having somewhat 50 to 100 kilocalories of a work. We never benefited from the excess of food what we had in your home. So we never calculated calories according to the work which we did. So there is where we had an implication. Similarly, one such thing what yoga talks about diet is it asks you to keep your food or divide your portion of food into 4 different parts. When it enters your stomach, it should be in 4 different parts. 2 parts that of solid, 1 part of liquid, 1 part of gas. So you are supposed to have liquids also in your diet. It cannot be just solid. So eat in such a way where if you divide your stomach into 4 parts, I find 2 of solid, 1 of liquid, 1 of gas. So that gas, I am not asking you to eat something. What I am trying to keep is, keep your stomach empty. So that it helps in churning the food, it helps in mixing the food, it helps in better absorption. So you need not worry about what is the implications of it. So slowly you can make this as a part of your diet and slowly utilize this. So along with that, there is also timings. We don't maintain a healthy timing, especially during lockdown. People forgot when to eat, when to sleep, when to do things, because our entire cycle was taken for a toll. So that is the reason why I would say fix a time. Is it so difficult to fix a time? Because as soon as you get up, if you don't brush your teeth, you feel something disgusting. So that is the awareness which we have built up within our system. So that's what I'm asking you to fix a time. 7 o'clock in the morning, have breakfast. 6 hours of a gap in between. 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, have your lunch. Then have a break again of 6 hours and have dinner at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the evening. So if you maintain this pattern, your acidity, your obesity, your diabetes, and probably, who knows, PCOD also will come down to a larger extent, because we don't discipline ourselves. So this is the other problem with our food nature. See, blaming on food, blaming on things is not going to work out on a long run. Taking responsibility and being responsible for the food what we eat makes an impact. So I hope this also stays in your mind, because this is also more important for you to understand. Food as such is not bad. No food is bad. But how we utilize it, how we eat it, how we treat the food, that makes sense. So once this comes into your understanding, probably majority of your diseases which are sprouting here and there can be controlled just by food. That's what even naturopathy believes in.
Yeah, doctor.
About the concept of immunity also, it's not a one product thing for immunity. It is like, I took a glass of milk, I got my immunity. I took amla, I got immunity. That's not what is immunity. Immunity is your lifestyle and your pattern of eating, that it nourishes each tissue system, the 7 tissue systems that we have in Ayurveda. Once all that is nourished, then you get your immunity. So the immunity is a broad concept. So what people should know is eat right and live right. All these lifestyle diseases, whatever we talk about, be it rheumatism, be it diabetes, be it obesity, everything is, the baseline is food and lifestyle. And this is very much spoken in Ayurveda in very broad aspect.
Thank you so much, doctor. That was really insightful. I believe we are having a good conversation and everyone is enjoying our conversation. So the next question, which sometimes confuses me as well. So when somebody wishes to take Ayurveda treatment, therapy, or naturopathy, ideology of life, or the treatment, they generally associate vegetarianism over non-vegetarianism while taking this kind of therapy or the medicines when we talk about it. So what naturopathy or Ayurveda talks about non-veg, and where the Jainism diet stands here. So we start with Dr. Joby. So what Ayurveda talks about non-veg, and can a person who believes in Ayurveda medicines or therapy can simultaneously take non-veg at the same time?
See, there is a misconception that Ayurveda or yoga is totally a vegan diet or a vegetarian diet. In Ayurveda, if you see, many acharyas have written about various meat, including animal meat, fish, birds. They have talked about various milk. They have talked about various eggs. And all these things are pushtikara, or we say it gives nutrition to the body. It is vadahara, and also it is kaphavardhaka. So on total, it is not that Ayurveda doesn't believe in non-veg, but each and every meat or each and every fish has its own properties, as I said, these gunas and these doshas, so that we have to know exactly when to eat and how to eat. Usually we say in winters our Agni is the highest, so we can digest anything, and that is when we should take more of it. But in summer season, the Agni is the lowest and we cannot digest more food. We take more of liquids, and that is when we should not take non-veg, because again it will heat our body more. So these all things, according to season, it is given specificities as to how to take it. And about pathyam, what we say in Ayurveda, restrictions. When everybody has a notion that you go to Ayurveda and they will put me into a diet, they will not let me eat what I like. But the fact is, you have overeaten and taken a liking to such a food substance because of which you are suffering. And there are, why we say not to take non-veg, not to take curd, is because they are more heavy to digest. And when we are trying to correct your basic Agni, that is a base, always it is like, Roga Sarvapi Mandagnam. Whenever it is always because of low digestion that you fall into disease, be it acidity, be it constipation, gas, whatever you talk about in the digestive system, it is mainly because of this. It's an indication that your Agni is low, your digestion is slow. So, to correct your Agni so that your metabolism is working better, we tell you to cut short on certain things. And it is not that to everybody we suggest. It is according to the doshas that has increased in your body. There are people whom we suggest you can continue your medicines along with your non-vegetarian. So, as long as you don't have that toxins or armor built up in your body. And about Jain diet, I think doctor will give a that explanation.
Okay, so before we proceed to Dr. Aditya, we have one more question I would like both of you to answer if you wish to. So we are getting one question. The viewer is asking, what food should kapha avoid?
If you are having more kapha predominance, mostly you are having cough, cold, bulky body and you're obese, always avoid madhura, amla, lavana. These tastes. That is, madhura is sweet, lavana is salty and amla is sour food. So based on these food, reduce those and increase your other tastes, more of pungent and astringent property medicines, food also. Also see that cold items, which is in virya, which is like fruits. Those are more of fruits which are cold in properties, and all those refrigerated items, all the food that is heavy to digest. So if you are, I cannot say exactly because kapha is not just single term, it's a broad spectrum. So if you have any specific disease or anything, you can please call and consult.
Yeah, in that note, if you wonder what kind of body type you have or what kind of dosha you have, we incorporated Prakriti analysis on our website, where you can go and take a quiz. That is an exclusive quiz. You can take a Prakriti analysis, send us your details. You will be having all the details, fillers out there. Once you feel, we'll get back to you within that of 24 hours with your report, and that's absolutely free. So it's a free Prakriti analysis that you can take, and post your analysis, you can probably book a consultation with a doctor to ask what kind of diet and food you should have. So we have a doctor, expert, Dr. Aditya Hande, who are, very expert with all kind of food and what kind of food you should consume with the different kind of doshas. He can help you out there. So with that,
let me continue with that non-vegetarian diet.
Yeah, Jainism, yeah.
I think you forgot anyway.
I know, I was coming to that.
So the question is about veg or non-veg, which is great and which is good for your health, and is it really implicated? We go to naturopathy centers, they avoid giving us any food. Yes, first of all, as I said earlier, the amount of energy, the amount of carbohydrates, fats and proteins which you get through non-veg is enormous. So this is a general analysis, what we look across. Like for a day, as an average individual, if you are a man who consumes more energy, you require somewhere around 2200 kilocalories of food per day. And let me say how 2200 kilocalories come to you. You can go to a hotel. It's not a home scenario, it's a hotel scenario. So compounding to all the interests of a hotel to make it more tasteful, you can have 3 idlis, 2 vadas, 1 chutney, 1 sambar, 1 coffee or tea. 1 coffee or tea. Okay, it's not 1 coffee and tea. So basically that itself is 2150 kilocalories. So I just gave you a typical idea about calories, which is too much for your entire day consumption. So if you're just an average adult doing your average work, then just breakfast is more than enough for you. So that is the reason why we don't classify food as an entirety of itself. So you need to eat in moderation. That was our initial thing. The same time, what constitutes as Jainism, non-vegetarian, the other aspect of this conversation is the violence, which we see in our plates. That is the reason why there is a rise in vegan movement, and there is a rise in other kinds of things. So Jainism is also the same concepts where they want to reduce the amount of violence onto your plates. So when I say violence, it is just not limited to animals. They feel pain, sure, but at the same time, even the fruits and vegetables which are hanging on the tree, on the shrubs, if you pluck that is also assorts to some kind of a violence. There is not research publications which says that it is a violence per se, but they communicate well. So there is that if you are trimming a garden, if one end you can feel the smell, that smell as a chemoreceptors can be traced on the other smells on the other side of the garden also. So they are now aware that they are having some problem, and there are a number of experiments which are going on this field. So this was how Jainism brought up something called as being inclusive to nature. Because when you start being more inclusive to the nature, then obviously you can see you reduce the amount of tension, you reduce the amount of the animosity between you and your surroundings. So that is the reason why people said, fine, we'll not try to eat fruits which are underground. So you're plucking the fruit, that also becomes a part of violence. So that is the reason why Jains don't eat onions, they don't eat potato, they don't eat carrot, they don't eat many fruits which are underground, because uprooting it is also accounts to violence. But this is also the same time where I would like to bring your attention to Bhagavad Gita. Why Bhagavad Gita is because Krishna, in his own words, he has said that meat is a part of your diet. But he has also said it is a kind of a Rajasika diet. So accordingly, when you say Rajasika, it means that you are utilizing your energy to the max. So if you are a soldier, if you are a person who is working in extreme environmental conditions, like that of, let's say, Himalayas, in Antarctica, and you need a lot of energy. So obviously, you will be requiring a non-vegetarian diet for making your body, making your mind more workful conditions as such. So that is the reason why nobody restricts you to not have non-vegetarian diet. It is not wrong or good or something which has to be avoided when you come to our centers or come to any kind of an alternative medicine. Even this also might click to you. Let's think that some of your relatives are there in the hospital, probably undergoing some treatments. Not just allopathic, not just Ayurvedic or naturopathy hospitals, they are in allopathy. Let's say they had some surgeries. Would you take a chicken biryani or would you take a fruits and vegetables is the question. Obviously you choose fruits and vegetables because they are more nourishing. So you know somewhere down the lane that these are good for your health. But only thing is, because of this taste, because of the 6 foot of or probably 15 centimeters of a length of taste buds, make your entire 6 feet of your gut be more reactive. So that is the reason why we say reduce the amount of non-vegetarian patterns in your body. When you do that, obviously you can see that there is a lot of changes. You become more sensitive, you become more responsive, not reactive. At the same time, you become more conscious about your actions. This is what yoga says, and this is what we believe.
I would like to include also that food that is taken in, it should be utilized. The energy, it should happen. Kinetic energy should be there. So if you notice farmers and laborers, they take food in large quantity, but you don't see the fat in them. It's because they are exercising. Their workload is like that. When we are taking in food, we have the opportunity to take in food more. We should see that we are also doing a lot of physical activities in some way.
Correct.
So that food is transformed. Otherwise, it will sit there idle. And then you get all these digestive problems, fat problems, etc.
Okay. Thank you, doctor. So the next question which we have here is, what naturopathy talks about fasting? So I believe you have lots of content about it and we are excited
The thing is, when you go to a naturopathy center, they put you on juice, they put you on mono diet fasting, and they put you on low calorie diet. So fasting is an integral part of naturopathy. As I'm telling about the importance of utilizing the energy in your body, utilizing the content of carbohydrates in your body, utilizing the content of fat in your body. This is the same context where you can see how the body, how the mind reacts to the fasting. So as rightly says Langanam Paramoshadam. So fasting is basically the best medicine for your body. Every religion talks about it. Every political party, some moment of the time they have practiced it. At the same time, clinically we push through fasting. So you need to understand, our subject of alternative medicine is not something coming from somewhere. It has a traditions, it has an ideology, it has a reason why we are doing it. So basically that is the reason why fasting has a very important source. The other thing which people are taken onto a trending subject is intermittent fasting. So today people are asking about skipping the meal and then having a meal. The problem is that doesn't sort out anything. I think probably we can talk about the diets also, which are various in nature.
Correct.
Something like vegan diet, something like keto diet, something like paleo diet, Mediterranean diet, DASH diet, Ornish diet. There are n number of diets which are there, you know. So these diets on a long run is not going to help you. So that is the reason why we say fasting is one kind of a thing. Our own entire naturopathy believes in the same thing. Once a week if you fast, that is if you leave the fasting as such, or if you adopt fasting for at least one day in the 7 days, then you can see your body acts better. You can see your mind acts better. At the same time, your digestive system becomes very reactive and responsive. So once that comes to your mind, then it is very easier for you to fast. Initially it becomes very difficult, and there is probably we can say a way to get into the fasting and way to get out of the fasting. That is the reason why I am not for intermittent fasting. Because what happens is intermittent fasting, it is something like, okay, tomorrow I don't want to eat because I have eaten a lot. So you skip one of your breakfast, or you skip one of your lunch or your dinner. So that adds to complications to your system, because your system is running in a certain way. Suddenly you change the fuel system, then it leads to a lot of confusion in your body. So that is the reason why fasting, how you are supposed to go is, if you want to, let's say on a hypothetical day, that is Sunday, you go on Saturday on an entire raw diet. That is whatever is available raw, fruits, vegetables, dry fruits, anything. Then entire Sunday either take 100% be on liquid. It can be juices, it can be water, but I would not avoid, or I would like to tell you that don't do anything with absolutely nothing to your system. At least you need water for that, because as I said, water is a universal solvent. Anything and everything is absorbed and it's replenished and replaced and recycled also. So that is the reason why see to it that you drink adequate water on the day coming, that is on the Sunday. Sunday evening, again come back to your raw food. Don't just go for the morning breakfast. It has a lot of implications again. So that is the reason why you need to maintain it. Fasting is not just skipping one thing or skipping one meal or skipping one day. It is voluntarily trying to make sure that your body responds good. Many people say to me that because of fasting I developed headache. Because of fasting I developed stomach pain. Because of fasting I am not able to pass my motions. This is all because of unethical way of fasting. You just fast for the sake of it. You're not fasting for the necessity of it. So don't do such a mistake or blunder where you just of nowhere you just avoid eating food. So you need to break the system correctly so that you can get this back to the system positively. So that is the reason why eat adequately whenever required. Let's say Saturday go on a raw diet, Sunday juice diet, and again on Monday have a raw diet, and then come back to your normal eating habits from afternoon of your Monday. Again the question comes, is diabetes also good for fasting? It is. Nothing's going to happen to you, but you have to be more confident. Before taking if you're diabetic, just come and consult to any of your doctors. They will try to give what exactly foods which will help you in aiding or reducing your diabetic pattern. So any diseases, one thing is you didn't had the day when you were born. Diabetes, obesity, hypertension, where basically you took it as you aged. So this can be reversed. Only thing is if you are willing, and only thing is if you are trying for it. So that is the reason why these fastings and these diets on a long run as such is good, but it should be braked, or it should be focused on what it is. The same time, I think I'll talk about diets also. Today, recently, we're talking about keto diet, paleo diet, and all those things. See, anything of these diets, even vegan diet for that matter, is not good for a long run. Keto diet, if you do it for more than 60 to 70 days, then there are chances of you are having a little bit of kidney problem, and you can develop liver problems. The same time, Ornish diet, which talks about high carbohydrate, high fat, and low protein, they also have some kind of implications on your kidney and your bones. So that is the reason why don't focus much on what kind of a diet you're supposed to practice. These are called as basically a fat diet, FAD, fat and diet. So don't stick to yourself to one such kind of a diet. Come to a doctor, try to understand what kind of a body you are and what exactly you can practice for how many days. Once that comes into your system, or one comes into your mind, then probably you can diet well. The same time, today everybody is talking about vegan diet. I mean, vegan diet, I am not against it, but at the same time, vegan diet also goes to an extent of not having regular fruits and vegetables also. Something like kiwi, avocados, melons, honey are also avoided in vegan diet. See, these are required for our system. As I said, violence done is in the plate. Whether you talk about fruits, vegetables, it's in the plate. But reducing it is good. But at the same time, reducing completely is also bad. So these are the two extremes of what we are actually practicing. So again, as a food, it should be balanced. At the same time, your body should be balanced. So that is the reason why have diet which is more of a balanced in nature. Have food which is more balanced for your system. Have food which is kind of not even vegetarian or non-vegetarian. Okay, it has to have non-vegetarian. I'm not telling you're not supposed to have vegetarian or you're not supposed to have non-vegetarian. Non-vegetarian on a daily basis, non-vegetarian on a monthly basis, you need to check. At the same time, if you really want to have non-veg, don't have it in the evenings when you are having dinner. Either you can have it for the breakfast, you can have it as a brunch, but probably even as a lunch, but not as a dinner, because that again restricts the absorption of vital elements which is there in the food. So that again hampers your digestion. It is like having a marriage meal in the evening, going to bed immediately, makes bloating an inevitable solution. So body is working even though you are sleeping. So if body tires up, then it screws up. So that is the reason why we say, see to it that you eat these foods accordingly. Once you make sure that you eat accordingly, then you not worry about the disease, because as I said, thy food, thy medicine.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Joby. So before you start the answer, there is one question we will take in. Shall we avoid all the dairy products, to avoid the complications of PCOD?
Shall I answer?
Yeah.
Dairy products, milk. These, already PCOD, there are lean PCODs, obese PCODs, heavy bleeding PCODs. Depending on that, this answer will be, if you are obese, then yes, stop your dairy products. If you are taking milk or any dairy products, it should be an empty stomach when you are really hungry, and not take immediately any meal after that till you are hungry for the next meal. Curd, I always say avoid curd, because Ayurveda has never said that you can take curd on a daily basis. It's always buttermilk. You churn the curd, remove the fat layer, add water, 4 times water at least, and then take it. Buttermilk is more safer and more healthier than curd. Curd once in a while is fine, but again on empty stomach. And paneer also is wholesome. People take it with spices, which is not recommended in Ayurveda.
Doctor, would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, basically this again comes back to understanding about dairy products. As I said, it is basically chemicalized. So obviously all the products of it should be chemicalized, right? So there is no reason why once you put chemical to the milk and you make products out of it, it doesn't have any chemicals. So yes, as doctor said, 1:4 is the ratio which you should take for buttermilk. See, at the same time, you need to understand, paneer is good for your body. Let's say the Shrikhand, which you get because of the sweetened curd, is also good for your body. These are good, but only when you take it when required, not as a main source. Palak paneer is not a regular dish. Palak paneer is a special dish. So when there is a special occasion, take the special dish. Nobody is restricting it. See, the problem is we take things to extremes. So I am not telling this is wrong, but regular taking of these medicines or regular taking of these kind of products will implicate. Okay, if your body is like a fire, it can digest everything. Okay, if your abdomen is like a fire, it burns up everything. Take everything. But today we are not doing it. That is the reason why even if you want to drink milk, think twice. The same time, compensate for the drinking of milk. Compensate for drinking of curd. Compensate for eating paneer. Compensate for eating anything which is with dairy. So what happens is, tell me how many cases or how many sports athletes as such in around the world have complaints of PCOD. What is the percentage with that with the normal girls or normal women? So the ratio you can see there is very minimal. But on a general public it is much more, because girls or women who are working in sports team or who are in active sports life, they don't have this problem because they utilize that much amount of energy like this. So even if you are doing any kind of a hardcore stuff, you need, that's what we are trying to tell you. There is any extreme, it's not good. So yes, it's not like a blanket ban on all the dairy products. You need them, but if you eat them, compensate for it.
So thank you so much, doctor. So we will continue with our question. Fasting, the idea of fasting in Ayurveda.
So when we talk about fasting, the concept of Agni again comes in. What is your digestion? How powerful it is? If you are a Pitta Prakriti person, you will have more Agni. One is Jatra Agni, that is the digestive fire. And then we have the Dhatu Agnis, or the tissues which change from one to the other. That is helped with this Dhatu Agni, be it Rasa Rakta Mangsa, whatever we say for the 7 tissues. So all this is again that metabolism that takes place. It's because of this Agni. So if you are taking in good amount in the right type of your body, then this Agni is not disturbed. But if you have the power, then you really digest whatever you can. Even it is said that if your Agni is good, you can even digest poisons. If your Agni is bad, then a small amount of pure substances also you will not digest. That becomes poison in your body. So when that stands, when the digestion is not happening or conversion is not happening, that leads to Amam, what we say, toxins. That's why we do the Panchakarma to detox. Coming to fasting, one is physical fasting, that is abstaining from food. And Ayurveda, one of the treatments is Langhanam, that is not eating or the right eating. That is to say, suppose you had a pizza today, which you don't regularly do, or you had biryani, or you went for a party or a wedding where you had lots of things at a stretch, and now obviously it is a load on the digestive fire. So the body requires time. Then we say skip the next meal. You don't need to take the next meal till you are hungry. That is important. So that is one type of fasting. Another one is, the rest of the fasting doctor has already answered. Another one is spiritual fasting or religious fasting. Religious fasting is to their own religions. And what I would like to say here is, even if you are fasting for your religious benefits, please remember that it's not just food. If you are going into a fasting, the pattern should be right. If you are coming out of it, the pattern should be right. Because that when you are not eating food and lot of gastric juices and these digestive juices are being produced, so and when you are breaking a fast, if you suddenly take in a heavy meal, your digestion will go for it all. So always start with a little sweet substances that can pacify this juices or this pitta which has aggravated, and then slowly go into the heavy meals. Or we can say take light food, like in South India we say kanji or kanni, and khichdi in the North India, or something light that is not heavy to the stomach. Spiritual fasting, it's people like they feel, okay, I fasted today and I am become pure. Please understand that food is one, but you need to fast also on materialistic thoughts and emotional thoughts. That is a totally different topic. It's totally spiritual. So when you are doing it in a religious way, it's all about controlling your emotions.
I think, yeah.
I would like to
Doctor.
add to this spiritual fasting as such. See, any religion for that matter, one thing is we don't know what is the context at which they have written. We just observe it. For example, Islam. Islamic community talks about fasting. Roza is what they keep. They are supposed to have dates first. People miss this out. This is the one thing where I have noticed my friends who do fasting on Roza, they just go on eating anything because they were just on no fast period from morning to evening. So yeah, as she's rightly said, it's a sweet which the body gets. Similarly, in Hindus, they have a practice of probably fasting for a number of reasons, like Ekadashi is there, for any kind of religious fastings like that of Shivratri, Janmashtami, and many other things. Janmashtami also, that is the reason why you get up and make it sweets first, because you can eat sweets well. Shivratri also, you eat sweet first, that is sweetened milk first, then you take your food. Ekadashi also, you are asked to eat poha, like she said ganji, but it's more specific of eating avlaki or ganji in that form because it soothes your body first. So it is not any religion will be telling about it, but only thing is we have forgotten. That's first thing. Second thing is why I wanted to specify is I think when she said about hunger, I remember one thing. We don't eat at our hunger timings. First of all, we don't have a discipline, so we don't have a understanding the difference between appetite and hunger. So hunger is your body is actually creating signals for your body to understand that there is something which the body requires. So that's called as ghrelin in chemistry. So that secretion of ghrelin is very important for your digestion to occur. That signals your mind to take food. The problem is you have taken the food and there is always a space for the dessert. So that is appetite. So when you are eating, see to it that you don't have appetite. You have good hunger. So once you have good hunger, your appetite should not be a bothering issue. Till wherever you go, people say, I had a stomach full of food and then I saw gulab jamun and that tempted me and I made way for the jamun to enter my stomach. Very wrong method of doing. So don't keep your appetite as a hunger triggering instances or hungering or making you to eat food. So appetite is entirely different than hunger. So have a thought in mind how exactly your bodies are functioning. Excuse me. So once you know how your body is functioning, once you have a specific time, do it for a 21 day of a regime and you can understand how your body actually is functioning. So that is the reason why don't just look outside. You see pani puri and your stomach feels like eating it. That's appetite. So understand the difference between hunger and appetite. That gives you a broader understanding about how you are digesting your food. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
The conversation will never end because it's very broad.
But this, I am very sure all of our viewers are, getting really insightful informations. So please continue.
Yeah. So what I was to say, yeah. Talking about this snacks or the desserts eating after a heavy meal. That's again, lot of these desserts are made of milk products.
Correct.
So that again is a viruddha ahara. So we need to understand that post taking a heavy meal or post your meal, it is something madhura dravya, not madhuram. There's a difference. Madhura dravya which will aid in the digestion.
Okay.
Betel leaves help in the digestion. You have jeera, you have saunf. These things.
Is it same as supari we call?
No, supari is
different.
something different.
All right.
Betel nut.
is the taste enhancers.
Okay.
That is betel nut.
Okay.
Yeah. So these things. What I wanted to say is,
Yeah.
when you're talking about food, always stick to your tradition. You don't need to compare that. Theirs is a better food habit or ours is a better food habit.
Correct.
Stick to your tradition. What your grandparents were taking, that was more healthier than what is happening now. Sometimes it is sad to say, but even grandparents, they must have followed a wrong diet, which has come into their legacy. But to the tradition means what it was in the beginning. Cook it at home, eat it, in a healthy manner. Even if nowadays you say that my mother is cooking at home, we are eating homely food, but she'll be watching some YouTube channel and making some recipes. Will you call that healthy?
Correct.
Is the combination right? So we are still to learn. Education is happening. Where is the common sense? Is the question.
Yeah. So before we proceed further, we will read few of the comments from our viewers. The first comment is from Anusha. So she says, "Thank you, doctors. Really insightful. Please do this kind of events every week." So thank you, Anusha, for the appreciation. We are doing this kind of events every weekend, basically every Saturday. Sometime we'll be doing with both of our doctors together. If not, we're doing two separate events, one Ayurveda specific and one other one will be naturopathy specific. The main objective of these events are going to answer all of your questions and to ensure that you get lots of insight about the problem area or the issue we were discussing. Thank you so much. So the next question which we are going to ask our doctor is, what is the connection between food and mind? So I believe there is a very in-depth connection with what we eat and what's happening in our mind. So Dr. Aditya, would you like to start?
If she could.
Yeah. So we'll start with Dr. Joby.
If I mention ice cream, what does it come to your mind?
Okay.
What does come to your mind and what does come to my mouth?
It comes to your mouth, so that means from your mind it comes to your body.
Yeah.
So if the thought of an ice cream, thought of something sweet, something which you like, it can give water to your mouth. It means that mind and body has relation.
Correct.
So in Ayurveda we speak about three gunas. That is the sattva, raja and tama of the mind. And the food also is classified into these sattvic, rajasic and tamasic food. So sattvic is always known to be balanced, always, which is easy to digest. Simple food, easy to digest. Rajasic is more to the pitta dosha, which increases, you can take it into the negative aspect also, positive aspect also. So if you are if you are having more of kapha dosha, you need to take more of rajasic food so that it is balanced. But if you're having pitta dosha and you take more of rajasic food, then it will increase the disease factor.
Correct.
Same with tamasic food also.
Okay. So
Dr.
probably why I gave her is because I have a huge thing to talk about, so I just wanted to keep her waiting.
Okay.
Thing is, yoga, as I said, it talks about entirety of mind. So naturopathy talks entirety of the physical body. So obviously there has to be a connection. Modern science talks about the connection between the food, body and mind in form of psychobiomes. Psychobiomes, the study of bacteria which are implicated onto your mind. So there's a different aspect as such. So based on this, there is something called as Rajasika, Satvika and Tamasika gunas even in yoga. So let's say when you drink alcohol, your body is not in your control or tuned with your mind. So that means that alcohol is overpowering your body's functionality. Okay? This is an example not just for alcohol, it is also an example for tea, it's an example for coffee, it's an example for onion, it's an example for garlic, it's an example for eggplant, it's an example for many other stimulants which are there in our society, like spices also. So they are basically considered as tamasika. Now people might be thinking tamasika is making you dull and lousy. That is one side of a chart. The other side of the chart are the stimulants. So anything which is making or hampering your system per se, they are considered as tamasic. If you don't control your food or you are being controlled by your food, they are tamasic in nature. That's first. Second is rajasic. They don't overpower your body parts or they don't overpower your thinking ability, but they make sure that you are exaggerated with your responses. So non-vegetarian diet, you might call anything which is heavy like carbohydrate rich diet, all those things are considered as rajasika food or rajasika guna of food. So here food is not implication. The problem is your consumption. So if you want to have too much of anxious, if let's say you are a pilot and you need too much of attention, you need to have coffee and tea because you have to be attentive. Surgeons need coffee and tea so that they can understand where exactly it is, because A surgery might take somewhere around 12 to 14 hours. I am not saying it's no, but I am telling they give you or they aid you. Once you have that, then you need something to relax this nerve, stimulated nerve. So you take on to the, let's say, some milder foods which can incapacitate you to go to sleep. So if you are not in any of these situations, if you are working from home where you are not having much of a strain and tension apart from your office work, get a sattvic ahar or sattvic diet, because sattvic diet is basically fresh. Sattvic diets are basically made to suit your healthy combinations, and sattvic diet keeps you on your toes to get sure that you are more attentive. So it creates an internal awareness. So there is no doubt about whether you are doing this right or wrong. Similarly, in modern science, we have, as I said, phycobiomes, which talks about the psyche and the connection of your bacteria in your abdomen. So the gut bacteria is what we are referring to here. So there are many chemical reactions which happens in your gut bacteria. Like butyrate is one chemical component which is developed in gut bacteria, which is used in your mind so that there is no mood disorders. So along with that, you can take something like short chain fatty acids, that is omega-3 fatty acids, to make sure that you enhance your mood as such. So, short chain fatty acids are available in majority of your fat foods like that of oil rich food, but that is not on again on a, that is the reason why, in India we call it as tadka. Tadka is to make sure that you are eating it, at the same time your mind is also working for it. So these are the few things which you need to understand how the body works. Similarly, there is something called as serotonin, which is required as a neurotransmitter for making you feel very much pleasant and happy. The best example which I can give you is premenstrual cycles. When you are having a lot of mood fluctuations, you crave for foods like chocolates, you crave for foods like ice creams. The one reason why this happens is because there is a low serotonin count. So you compensate it by having chocolates and ice creams. There is a chemical substance which is called as 5-hydroxytryptophan, which is found in chocolates and things like this, which enhances your mood. So obviously there is a lot of relation between your gut bacteria and your mind, and it has its own way of making sure that it reacts in a different way. So that is the reason why food not just has a physical implication, it also has a mental implication. And this is not just in our traditions, but in a modern research where we are trying to understand the body in itself. What is the connection, what and how body works on basis of food. Because why food is a very important and a big chapter is because whatever you are in the past so many years, you might be early 30s, you might be late 60s, you are what you have eaten for so many years. You are what you have taken so many years. You have ingested this in so many years. That is the reason why food is what you are. As I said, 72% of the body is water, but the rest of it is nothing but what you have accumulated through your food. So it is, and it has a big impact on your life. So that is the reason why focusing on food, especially to create a good vibrations in your mind, to good thoughts in your mind, to good mood in your mind, you have to have a good food.
Thank you so much, Doctor. So before we proceed to our next question, I'm going to read out few comments. So Nisha says, I missed my naturopathy course. Session is going very nice. Thank you so much, Nisha. And the second question which we have from one of our viewer, can we be healthy without maintaining a particular diet? Who would like to answer it? Anyway, we are going to get back to one of you later. So who would like to answer first? Okay, Dr. Joby. Can we be healthy without maintaining a particular diet?
You have to be sure what you're eating and how you're eating. Okay. Your mind also counts. So that's why I said follow your traditions. Previously, many years back, how it was cooked, how it was processed, those things matter. Not nowadays. Even junk food, if you see, you say that it has a lot of green vegetables, it has cheese, it has this, that. That is all. Everything individually has its own nutritional values. It is a combination that is deadly. So I would say increase your awareness on food, and then you decide what is good for your body. Your body will tell you.
Correct.
Your body will respond. When you take one thing, do you feel good or not? Is it hampering your digestion or not?
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning about. When you eat food, and how you eat food is more important. So as I said, you do not worry about what kind of a diet you are having. very important thing is, are you maintaining the same diet for a long term? Because your body responds, as she said. But let's say you hypothetically want a diet chart out of this. This is what I think, what you are trying to get out of it. So yes, if you want a kind of a food where you don't want to follow any diet, but you can have anything without much of a guilt, have anything and everything in morning. This is generalized term. I am not telling the particular category of group. For all the population per se, if you really don't want to follow any kind of a diet, don't follow any diet. But one thing, make sure is whatever you are having, let it be more natural, let it be less cooked. And I say less cooked, it is not too muchly boiled, fried and all those things. But when you say diet, anything and everything. You want to have sweets, you want to have junk food, probably not. I'll probably talk about junk food later. You want to have non-vegetarian diet, anything, have it in early morning. Okay, that is breakfast. And then you have as much regular food as possible in your afternoon, and as minimal as possible in your evenings, because evenings you go to sleep, you expect the same to happen to your body.
You should get up early to also have a lunch.
Yes, obviously.
Yeah.
So as I said,
That is
7,
also
12,
there.
7 is the time to have your food. So if you could maintain this diet chart, which is more eat like a king in the morning, eat like a normal person in the afternoon lunch, and eat like a miser in the evening, creates a good balance for your food. So I'm not telling don't have any of the vegetarian junks or whatever there in the market. Once a week or once a month you are supposed to have it, because your body will come to know that what are the stuffs they are. You will also come to know how your body reacts and how strong is your digestion. Because once you go out and eat something, your body will obviously respond to it. So once you know, because of yesterday's food, I have trouble digestion, then automatically you will not have per se, let's say the pizza from that. Probably you can have burgers, but I'm not telling you're not supposed to have a blanket ban. Have it, not on an everyday basis. That's one. Anything and everything which you're following, do it for a minimum of 21 days to create a habit. That's very important, because one day you eat, you don't feel a result, then you throw out that then to a dustbin. Not going to help. Anything and everything you want to follow, you want to take from this class, or you want to take from this session, you want to take from an advice, anything. If you want to make sure that it has an implication, let it be there for 21 days. That gives you an answer. Every day do the same habits again and again. It creates an internal rhythm of your body. Once the body is very happy with that, continue for 90 days to make it as a part of your lifestyle. So always follow this 21-90 days rule, where you create a balance, where you try to make your body understand, be aware of these changes, at the same time make it as a lifestyle. So how do you create a lifestyle? Do anything for 90 days and it becomes a lifestyle.
There are many websites and nutritional books and loads of things available. So you have to research, and not just on the modern aspect. Always, whenever you're typing for a disease or whenever you're typing to know what is good for the health, or side by side, always try to know what Ayurveda has to say, try to know what naturopathy has to say, try to know what yoga has to say. You will get an answer.
Thank you so much, doctors. That was a really insightful session, and with this, we are at the end of our Q&A session, food and our body, ideology, Ayurveda and naturopathy. Hope you liked and enjoyed our session, and we really appreciate your comments. And okay, for next weekend we are coming up with 2 more events, that is Ayurveda and fertility, and the second one is sports oriented physiotherapy. So that's we are going to come up with next Saturday. The event will go live by tomorrow. If you are concerned with the related fields, please go and RSPB right away. And for more details, you can visit our website www.ishkaayurveda.com. You can call us. Number will be provided in the comment section in a few minutes. Apart from that, if you have any questions or any issues, and if you want to book an online consultation or just walk into our clinic, which is in HSR Bangalore, you can directly call from our Google provided number. We are available always. Thank you so much. Happy Navratri, and don't forget to wear your mask. Thank you so much.
Thank you.